What's up everybody and welcome to this episode of Gearist TV. Today we're going to be bringing you the review for the Minimus Trail version 2 from New Balance. One of the challenges that a lot of runners who are trail runners that really prefer a more minimalist shoe, one of the challenges they run into is finding a shoe that can really take them off-road onto more technical trail. Now, of course, they can run on single track or well-worn trail and things like that because a lot of minimal shoes will cater to that, but it's that technical, steep, rocky, gravelly, scree type stuff where you're going to run into a challenge because the shoes that are made for that simply aren't going to fit the minimal mold. Now there is no in-stone definition of what is a minimalist shoe, so we'll just say minimalistic. There's more of a spectrum. So what New Balance has done with the Minimus Zero Trail V2 is they've really come out and tried to make a zero drop shoe that is really going to allow people who want to get on technical trail the ability to do so. So let's get into the review. Now if you're at all familiar with the Minimus Trail Zero version 1, then you'll notice there's quite a bit of difference between this shoe and that shoe. You can see the Minimus version 1 here. Now, in this shoe, no place is that big difference more evident probably than the outsole. As you can see, and I'll hold up to the camera here, this thing is luggy. All these lugs are made from a sticky rubber, which are going to help you to grip in more technical surfaces like gravel, loose dirt, things like that on descents and ascents. And the lugs are oriented to grip into that type of terrain. It's also going to be great when it gets wet outside. So this handles mud and snow quite well. The lugs themselves are each about 6 millimeters in depth, which I think you can maybe see there. They're about 6 millimeters in depth and they lay atop a full coverage outsole that runs front to back. There are no gaps, no flex grooves that are built into the outsole here, although the flexibility of the shoe is still fantastic. Simply looking at the outsole of the shoe, it's pretty impressive. I mean, these are like tooth-like cleats and they do a great job of really gripping a lot of surface. I've run in dry single track, I've run on technical trail that is completely off trail, I've run uphill, I've run downhill, I've run in mud, I've run in snow. This handles things really, really well. I would say ice, but as we've talked about before, ice, unless you've got a studded shoe, it doesn't really matter what you're running in. So this handles snow really well. It's just a really grippy shoe. The outsole does a fantastic job of getting into whatever you need, really sinking your teeth into it. And the ground feel, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the ride section, allows you to really stay on top of exactly the posture of your foot when it's on surfaces like that, thus keeping you even more stable. One additional cool thing that I love about the outsole of this is that it does a great job of self-cleaning. Now, what that means is basically if you're on a muddy surface and it gets mud gunked up into the lugs here, a lot of times you'll have shoes where the mud will just stay there. Either that's because the lugs are closer together or whatever, it doesn't matter. This does a nice job of cleaning itself out. I think that's due to two factors, main two factors. One is that the lugs are actually spaced quite wide apart and they also kind of angle themselves outward. And the other thing is that the shoe is so flexible and so it allows it to really clean off. This is not a huge deal, but if you're running in some mud or something like that and you pick up like an additional what feels like 15 pounds of mud on your shoe, it's nice when it cleans itself out easily. And if you need to stop and kick it on a rock, again, really the mud just drops away very nicely. The midsole of the MT0 V2 is where the minimalist, if you will, sections or kind of features of the shoe really come through the most. Now, it is a single piece of Revlite foam that is New Balance's proprietary foam front to back. There are no like pods or anything like that going on. It's just a single piece of the same stack height. That stack height is 21 millimeters. Now that is open to a little bit of interpretation because keep in mind that these lugs are about 6 millimeters, which would make this around a 15 millimeter stack height shoe without the lugs. However, since the lugs do affect the ride and the cushioning of it, we need to consider that in those measurements. As I mentioned at the beginning of this review, finding a truly minimal or minimalistic trail shoe that's really going to allow you to pursue rocky and technical terrain is really very challenging. Are there more minimal shoes in this that are suitable for trails? Sure, of course they are, including the version 1 of this shoe. But this shoe with its lugs and its pedigree are really going to be, it's going to be more set up for that technical terrain that's going to throw a little more obstacles at you. It's going to be more scree fields and things like that. Things where you're going to need that additional grip and grab of the outsole. This shoe does not have a rock plate, and while that is definitely noticeable when you get to things like pointy rocks and things like that are really going to jab up in through the outsole into the midsole, one of the things that keeps you protected to a large degree are the lugs, because the lugs act as kind of a buffer. The shoe also, as you would expect in a shoe with its minimalist pedigree, does have fantastic ground feel, which is great when you're on things where you really need to be aware of what's going on underfoot. Not so great sometimes if you are running over things that are really kind of ankle breaker rocks that are sticking up, but that's the case for any shoe that's more minimal, that's got lower stack height, that's not got a rock plate in it. So this does a fantastic job. The midsole, great ground feel, zero drop, love it. The upper of the MT0 V2 is made primarily from synthetic mesh, a dual layered synthetic mesh with faux suede overlays, which you can see here, and then a little bit of plastic, kind of TPU overlays on the front and the back toe cap there. Internally, the mesh is backed with an even smoother mesh to allow for a nice barefoot feel should you choose to run barefoot. Those suede elements that I mentioned are heat bonded to the shoe, as you can see here, keeping nice clean lines and still adding that support element. And then in the heel counter is actually pretty flexible, although it is certainly there, and it's protected or wrapped here by a little bit of rubber, which is going to protect that heel and also add a little bit of stability in the heel cup. And then up here into the toe, you can see another bit of rubber that's going to act as a toe bumper, which is going to protect those toes if you like to kick things like this guy. Right away, you can tell that the upper of the MT0 V2 is quite a bit more traditional in its look and construction, and we're going to touch on that a little bit more in the fit section coming up soon. Apart from its more traditional look, New Balance has done a great job of keeping the feel of the upper quite a bit in the vein of that minimalist area, and it's very flexible, very malleable. Like you can see, it's compactable. It bends with the shoe. I don't know whose foot bends this way at all, but it does a great job of still being flexible but still holding the foot the way that you would want it to. It's in there, which is great for when you have to be more agile on a very technical trail. On the outside, the shoe does boast no-sew construction, with the exception of right here around the toe cap and then a tiny bit right before the collar internally. It's still a very comfortable shoe to wear barefoot, though again, I tend to not run barefoot, especially not on trails. The toe cap of this shoe is something that I really like a lot. Now, this may seem like a small thing, but keep in mind, this is a shoe that's meant for more technical trail. The toe cap, as you can see here, uses almost a rand-like construction, which is basically to say an outward band surrounding the transition between the midsole and the upper. And you can see here, it goes all the way around from the first metatarsal head, the ball of the foot right here on the medial side, all the way around, and forms a nice whole area around the toe box that is being protected by this bumper. So it's not just the front of the toes and just ignoring the rest, but this goes all the way around. For me, the amount of foam in the collar and the tongue, which I've talked about before, is really nice. It's not too much, it's not overly there, it's not super thin or anything like that either. So it's a really great amount of foam, and I really enjoy that. Now, the Achilles insertion right here, where the back of your heel goes in your Achilles, it comes up very high. Now, I've actually worn this on one run in particular where this came up above my socks. Now, I don't wear socks that are no-shows. I mean, they're low. They're not like ankle socks or anything, but this came up above that and actually gave me a small blister on one side of my ankle. I have to think that that was a one-off, that maybe some debris or something got in there, because I certainly did more than just that one run in this, and that was the only time that that really came up. But I really feel like the heel lockdown in the heel cup and the heel counter is good enough that this could easily be lowered quite a bit to give a little more room and take a little pressure off the Achilles. Now let's talk about the fit. The first thing that I like to say is that this shoe comes in a D and a 4E width. Now I run in the D because I have a very traditional foot, very average. It's not wide, it's not narrow, it's just average. So this is the size that I run in. If I wore a 4E, my foot would be swimming in it all over the shoe. Now, from the back to the front, let's talk about how the shoe is constructed and how it fit me. So first of all, my foot feels great in the heel cup, with the exception of this Achilles insertion being quite high, a little higher than it needs to be. The heel cup is really nice, and I think that these kind of rubber or plastic elements around the back here do a nice job of shaping that, and my foot just felt really right at home in there. I felt like the upper also did a really nice job of adjusting to my needs, just really adapting to my foot. The lacing, there's plenty of room in the laces, plenty of room through the throat to allow this to expand or tighten down as I need to, depending on terrain or depending on maybe my feet are swollen from a long run or ride the day before or something like that. A while ago, we took a look at the New Balance Fresh Foam 980. You can see that review right here. Now, when we talked about that shoe, what wound up being the case is that the shoe fit really just almost perfectly until we got to the toe box. And then for some reason, it just kind of narrowed to a point. And the same thing is going on here with this shoe. While the rest of this shoe offers plenty of room, I mean, it is exactly where you'd want it to be. It feels nice and fitting in the midfoot. It feels great in the heel cup. When you get to the forefoot, it's okay through the metatarsal head area, but then when you get up to the tip, there's almost no room for the toes to splay, which in my opinion is something that we really want to look for, especially in a trail shoe where you want your foot to be able to adapt to handle different terrain. Knowing that the whole Minimus line is all about natural foot function and shape, this is actually really quite surprising. Now, we've seen in other trail shoes from New Balance, this being the 1010 V2, that the toe box, which you can see here, it looks like it comes to a point. It's a little deceiving with this orange piece here, but there's plenty of room in the toe box. And it's just curious to me why something that's in the same line, the Minimus line, would come to such a point like that. Now, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, could I wear the 4E version of this? Maybe. But again, I feel like that my foot would be swimming in this part of the shoe and then comfortable up here. But it's interesting. So it's not really a deal breaker for me. I feel like this fits kind of what you would expect to see in some racing flats, the pointed toe and the kind of snug fit through the toe box. But for me, this is something that would really need to be changed. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement here by just minor adjustments, just pulling the line of the shoe out the lateral side just a little bit. Doing something like that would take this right into the meat of the Minimus line with the foot shape, but it would also really make this shoe a lot more approachable to those that are looking for a more minimalistic shoe anyway, in an off-road super technical trail shoe. Let's chat about the ride for a minute. So there are going to be a lot of people that are minimal running purists that are going to say that there's too much underfoot, there's too much separation between the foot and the ground for this to be a true minimalist shoe. And that may be the case, but again, the definition of minimalism is a moving and ever-evolving target. But if you are one of those minimalist purists and you really want to go on that technical terrain, you're going to need a shoe like this, a shoe that offers you the grip and traction that this shoe does. For me, the traction of the MT-0 V2 is really fantastic. On all kinds of trail, it did a great job of gripping, especially when I wanted to go off the beaten path and on more technical stuff. While I typically take even trail shoes on the road for testing purposes, just so I can report back to you guys, I didn't feel like that was necessary with this. This is a pure trail shoe, plain and simple. I feel like you may wear down, the rubber's actually really very tough under here, very sticky, and it feels very durable, and there's barely any wear on this with probably about 40 or 50 miles on it. But there is the tendency of lugged shoes like this when you get them on asphalt or gravel, or not gravel, but asphalt or pavement in general, to really kind of wear down those lugs quickly, and I didn't want to ruin that with these. The shoe's body for a trail shoe is very nimble and flexible, and it really adds to the agility of the shoe, and it's lightweight. This model, it's men's size 9, this is a size 11, but in a men's size 9 comes in at 8.8 ounces. The MT-0 V2 comes in at $110, which puts it nicely on par with other shoes in the same range. Now, what's interesting is that I think that some people, for technical trails in general, a technical trail shoe, they're going to look at it and other shoes of its ilk, and they're going to say, well, that's a little bit much in the realm of shoes for me. You know, I don't run on trails. I don't know if I'm ready to run on trails that are that technical. Anyone can run on trails that are technical. Do yourself a favor and try it. It's really fun to be out there off the beaten path and really ripping up some dirt. So if you're gonna try a trail like that and you want a shoe that is gonna be putting your foot into a more natural foot posture, and you know, with the zero drop and nice lugs that can handle that kind of terrain, this is going to be an option that you may want to try. This is a really well-built shoe with a long history. We know that New Balance makes quality products, and this is no different. The one caveat is that I really do think that this toe box needs to be changed, because it's not going to be a deal breaker for most people, but it's going to give some people that have wider feet but not wide enough for a 4E shoe to be able to really truly get comfortable in this. In any event, we know that New Balance is where they are in the running shoe game because they make a quality product that is consistently really durable and well liked by a lot of people. This is a shoe that you should get on your foot, especially if you've got that technical trail near you. And if you've got technical trail and you're scared to try it out, don't be. It's a lot of fun, and you need a shoe like this that's going to get you there. Let's do the ratings. First, construction, we're going to give it 4 stars. Really well-built shoe. Again, I think that this is part of the construction that needs to be fixed. Durability, 4 stars. Again, these have about 40 or 50 miles on them and almost nowhere. That is exclusively on trails, no road. Really durable. Comfort, we're going to give it 3 stars. That is largely because of this toe box and a little bit because of the high Achilles insert. I feel like if both those things were fixed, this would be right up there toward 4.5, 5 stars. Fit, 3 stars. Now, you would think that I would mark it down maybe even a little bit more because of the toe box, but the rest of the shoe fit me really, really well. I do think that this is a detriment, and some people are going to balk at that. Weight, 4 stars. For a technical trail shoe, 8.8 ounces, really nice weight. And finally, performance, we're going to give it 4.5 stars. This thing does rip up some trails and does a really nice job. I think that that 1.5 mark tick off that I took there is going to be because of some of those fit issues, particularly in the toe box. And now we want to know, what kind of trails do you like to run on? Do you like to hit the off-road super technical stuff, or do you mainly stick to single track? Let us know in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Gearist TV. Don't forget to like and favorite this video and also subscribe to our channel. We just passed 1,000 subscribers, and thank you so much to those of you that have subscribed. Please also click on over to Gearist.com and take a look around at all of our other reviews. Also find us on all your social networks. Facebook.com/TheGearist, Instagram @TheGearist, Twitter @TheGearist, Google+, Gearist Rocks, YouTube.com/TheGearist. Take a look at all of our places that we are on the internets and say hi. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.